Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LeanTossup Call of Duty League podcast. My name is Robert, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, CDLMetrics. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Yeah, watched some COD this weekend. We had the March Madness National Championship games for the women and the men over the last couple of days. The women's game was a blowout. The men's game was pretty competitive, so that was fun to watch. Not a great ending, but still one of the better national championship games we've gotten in quite some time. So that was nice. I'm a little bummed the college basketball season is over, but we still have COD. The NFL draft is coming up pretty soon. Baseball
Yes.
season's in full swing, so yeah, there's a lot going on still. But yeah, excited to talk COD as usual.
Yeah. No, it is. The NFL draft is always very fun. Betting on draft props is always great. That's what? That's not this week, right? That's next week, right?
2 weeks from now, so it's like the 22nd. What is it? 24th, I think it starts on. So a
Yeah,
little over
it's
2
not.
weeks away.
It's not this Thursday. This week is Easter. It's the week after is when it is. Yeah. So that's cool. So yeah, so it's good to have COD back, and the thing is that actually coincides. The major is that. Oh wait, is the draft the first day of the? It
Yeah,
is, isn't it?
yeah, because we have qualifiers this weekend and next weekend, and then the first day of the draft is also the first day of the major. So
Yeah.
again, we're having an issue where the major's running into a major event, but thankfully a lot of the draft coverage is late in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts at 8, and only really day one matters, and day two's coverage, but only the real degens bet on day two props. I do sometimes, but not very many. I actually followed like the second day and third day, more for that guy went there, right? Stuff like that. But it's still cool to see that though.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, moving on to actual Call of Duty. Models versus market week recap. We did not have a great week on our picks, on these picks specifically. Other stuff we did better on though. I liked Vegas versus Miami, and to be fair, they took them to a game five. They did take them to a game five, but they did not win that. And Cloud9, they just got blown out by Optic. It was a what? It was a 3-0 or a 3-1, I think. It was a 3-0 or 3-1, I
It's a
think.
3-0, yeah.
3-0, yeah. That one was rough. Optic was both better and worse than we expected, which is par for the course for this Optic team. What were your thoughts on your stuff from last weekend?
Yeah, so with my number one pick with Minnesota there, for a while, I was kicking myself because I was like, I was so close to taking Minnesota moneyline versus Texas and Cloud9 moneyline versus Texas. And it looked like Minnesota were going to win that series, and they fell apart in game four and then lost around 11 in game five. So glad I had the plus 1.5 there. It still paid plus 150, which is great. And then I was really excited about the Cloud9 pick too, and then they just no-showed. So fluky with that. It was a good week for Optic overall when you think about getting 2 wins against a couple quality teams, even though one went pretty long, the other one was very convincing. And then back on Minnesota for that map 3 versus Boston. A sneaky storyline of the week, I would say, was Boston Breach Control looked fantastic. And I spent a lot of time last week saying, hey, Boston Breach Control is pretty bad. I don't know why they're priced like they might win. And they had a 3-0 against Toronto and then a 3-1 versus Minnesota the next day. So Boston Breach maybe making some sneaky good improvements in that third map that we played. Yeah, I think we learned a lot about the teams with roster changes. 5 of the 12 had roster changes going into last week. We learned quite a bit. We had some banger matches, and yeah, we got more coming up this weekend. So hopefully we'll do better, though.
Yes. I mean, we have good and bad weeks, but I will say that I should probably just I just pick more hard point spreads because I did pretty well on that last weekend. But anyways, the combined model, not so bad, had a really good Friday. That was a really good Friday. Saturday, not bad, but about even, and then had a good Sunday too, right? Thieves and Minnesota money line and Carolina in there as well. Honestly, not a bad mix there. For the combined model did really well. We didn't do great, but the combined model did. League news, yeah, not much league news. We really couldn't think of much. Yeah. Anyways, expected qualifier wins. This is now these are CDLMetrics ones. So yeah, we're thinking Thieves are going to be the first seed again. At least your model sees that. I think, spoiler alert from my model next. Phase there at 3.73. Optic is very much back in your model at 3.67. Then you got Boston, Toronto, Vancouver bringing up the rear, all tied there at around 3, jockeying for 4th, 5th, and 6th. then Minnesota and Carolina rounding it out. Then you got Miami, Cloud9, LAG, and then Vegas down to 0.16. On the other hand, mine are also very similar to that as well. Mine does like Vancouver more than yours. I think do we have the exact same number for Toronto? We have the same number within a tenth of a win for Toronto. That's pretty funny. I'm 2.86. You're 2.99. That's called model agreement there. And then Boston 2.6, Carolina 2.26, 2.27, Miami 2.26, Minnesota. I've got more of a log jam there from 6th through 10th, and then LAG. But I've got Vegas has a shot here. Maybe Vegas can win something. I think they could win one game here. Any of your thoughts on the positioning here as for the major here?
Yeah, just looking at my numbers, I definitely think my Vegas number is low. I like your number more than mine there. I don't think they should be hovering around one win, but they should be closer to one than zero. Or maybe not, but half a win, I'd say, is a good line to cut it at, just because they looked much improved last weekend despite not winning anything. They very nearly beat Miami. I think it's hilarious that Vegas, after not winning a hard point all year, they win two in one series and then can't come through in either search and destroy or the control. So that was just somewhat hilarious. I feel for the Falcons. I think they will get a win this year. There's not a lot of games left, but I think they proved themselves at least capable of pushing a game 5 and maybe eventually winning one of those. So I think my Vegas number is low. I think the other numbers are pretty spot on. Just looking at the top, like Thieves look like a pretty strong favorite to get the 1 seed, but there is a scenario where like Thieves and FaZe and Optic maybe all end up with 4 wins. But then it gets a little tricky, yeah, like especially around that 8 seed, 9 seed, and a lot of these teams play each other, so we'll see how those shake out. But yeah, I think the teams to watch for are Minnesota, Carolina. Those two teams play each other this week. I think Miami plays Minnesota later in the qualifier period, but yeah, I'd say we're in pretty good like lockstep for most of them. Just a couple discrepancies here and there, but yeah, excited to see how it shakes out and how we look compared to what we had last week too.
Yeah. Moving on to match previews, and these are all odds via Bet365. Friday match 1, Miami versus Optic minus 500 on the money line, Miami plus 333. Optic minus 1.5, minus 200, Miami plus 1.5, plus 150. Optic 42.5 on the hard point, 1.5 round favorite in the search, and 1.5 round favorite in the control. Our models really like Miami here, and that's a little surprising, but it does make some sense if you think about it. I think my model kind of likes Optic a bit less. Miami did stuff against Vegas, so maybe, right? Maybe Miami could be a bit of a play here. Super looked really good. I will say that. I don't really want to be betting against this Miami team, so maybe we take a shot at this Friday, 3 o'clock. Hard point spread. We both like Miami on the hard point. 42.5 points. Maybe they could rip off a win in the search or the control. Yeah, let's vamos here. Maybe that's what we're doing on Friday afternoon. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'll start with Optic, just because they were a big talking point last weekend, and they got 2 wins. They're sitting in first right now in the qualifier standings, because no other team has 2 wins right now. And they were against 2 quality teams in Minnesota and New York. I think most people would have predicted they split that. They'd probably win 1, lose 1, but they got 2 of them, and now they're looking great for the qualifier seeding for Major 3. But at least the first match, it was really close between them and Minnesota. So to me, that's great that they won. It's great that they aren't getting 3-0 swept like they were every week for a while. But that series, at least to me, is indicative of, okay, Minnesota and Optic are pretty close. And right now, I still would probably put them in the middle of the pack, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th in that area. I think they're definitely worse than FaZe, Thieves. I would have them probably as an underdog to Surge. And then you start getting into that, are they as good as Toronto or Carolina, and then Rocker and New York, and all those other teams that are solid. And then, yeah, they turn around and they beat Cloud9 very easily in a sweep. So that was impressive. So overall, good week for Optic. Miami, little shaky, but we have to remember that this Vegas team isn't the old Vegas team. Like, this is still probably the worst team in the league in Vegas Falcons, but much improved. So at least Miami got the win against them. Their search and destroy looked pretty good. They lost 2 hard points, which isn't great, but their control looked solid as well. So at the end of the day, like, these prices to me are still putting Optic in that tier of, we think they're on par with Ultra and on par with Surge. And I'm just still a little hesitant on that. And I know I said last week, I need one more week. I need 1 week of data with these guys. I think I might need a second week. But yeah, I think the market is a little overconfident in how good this Optic team is. If they can put together performances like they did last week against Cloud9, then my tune will change. Like, if Optic come out and slam Miami, which very well could happen, it's okay, maybe we need to buy in now. But yeah, I don't know. I think Miami are a scrappy enough team to maybe push this to the brink. Like, I have them as slight underdogs, map 1, map 2, map 3. I think they're well suited to pick up something in there, and if not, push it to a game 5 and maybe win. I expect Optic to win, but I think, yeah, Miami are just a solidly built team to be competitive in this spot. So we'll see, Optic. You're maybe back, but maybe not. We'll see after this one for sure.
We'll see. I think that's to be determined. Let's see how this one looks for sure. Next up, Friday, second match on Friday, Vancouver versus LAG. Vancouver a minus 700 on the money line, LAG plus 400, minus 1.5, minus 250, plus 1.5, plus 175. Vancouver, it's a 59.5 point favorite in the hard point, 1.5 round favorite in the search, and 1.5 round favorite in the control. Yeah, I don't see a lot of value here. This is pretty much in line exactly with my model. I don't think I'm touching this one. Do you have any thoughts on this? I'll watch this one, I think.
Yeah, seems about right. I know my model is pointing in the direction of LAG, but I don't really like that. We only got to see LAG once last weekend. It was against Ravens. They 3-0'd them in control and almost won map 1. They only lost by 7. You lose 3-1, but at least you were pretty competitive against a good team in Carolina. And Vancouver, kind of a weird weekend in a way. Like, they come out and beat Vegas very easily right away. And I know a lot of people were watching that, just seeing, like, how does this Vegas team look? And in that series, they looked much like their old selves. And then Vancouver played the last weekend of the series versus Thieves, a team that they've played a lot lately and a team that they've been competitive with and just looked very uncompetitive. So Vancouver beat up on a bad team, got beat up by a good team. I still think they are in the top 4 probably. They're definitely worse than Thieves. I'd say definitely worse than FaZe, but you can make your argument they're still number 3, number 4, somewhere in there. And LAG with the new lineup, they looked like the same LAG team, which we thought going into last week. We thought their roster changes may be more lateral than an improvement. So I'm still there with LAG. I don't know. It's tricky. I think my model is still a little behind on Surge and just their surge throughout this later part of the season. But yeah, I think I just got to wait and see. But I do fully expect this probably to be a Surge 3-1, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. Last up on Friday, Carolina versus Minnesota. Carolina minus 188, Minnesota plus 137. Carolina minus 1.5 plus 137, Minnesota plus 1.5 minus 188. Carolina 12.5 point favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search, 1.5 round favorites in the control. Oh, there we go. Yeah, again, my model really seems like Carolina in search and destroy for some reason. Absurdly, but not much value in the hard, actually technically negative value in the hard point. A lot of value in, not a lot, just a little bit of value in the money line, but not a lot of value in the minus 1.5. Yours is pretty much lockstep in with the book as well. This week is boring. This is kind of the tail of this week. It's okay, there's a couple of random games where we see value, but everything else is just, nope, there's not much here. It's just, yep, this is exactly what we had. I don't see a play here at all.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. This should be a good series. I'm very interested to see how this plays out. Like I said earlier, this is a pretty big game in terms of seeding. If you win this, you're looking very good for winner's bracket. If you lose this, I'd say odds are you're probably starting in loser's bracket, but TBD on that. So yeah, a big leverage game in terms of seeding, but yeah, I'm right in line with the books on most of the individual maps and the spread at large. I have Carolina slightly favored, as does the book. Most of that is coming in Search and Destroy. But yeah, I don't know. Both of these teams, we just touched on Carolina in their series against LAG. They looked fine. Minnesota had a sneaky okay week. Like, to beat in, or to just barely lose to an Optic team that should be a lot better was encouraging. And they were very close. Obviously, the round 11 loss hurt them. But map 1 was also pretty close. And then their series against Boston was like the complete opposite, where they lost map 2 and map 3 pretty convincingly, but the rest of the series, barring the round 11 in game 5, went their way. Yeah, I think these teams are both solidly built. I just think the prices are pretty spot on with them. Interested to see how it plays out. If it is a blowout one way or the other, I'm sure our numbers will adjust accordingly, but for the most part, this looks like a series that could go the distance and could be a pretty close map in and map out. So I guess if I had to take a side, I'll lean Carolina, but it's really just a stay away for me at this point.
Yeah, I think this one is a stay away. Saturday match number 1, FaZe versus Heretics. FaZe minus 1400 on the money line. Heretics plus 650. FaZe minus 2.5 plus 100. Heretics plus 2.5 minus 138. 45.5 point favorites in the hard point. 1.5 round favorites in the search. 1.5 round favorites in the control. Yeah, it's weird. We like Miami in game 1, but here we're just like locked. We're just like, this is not a touch. Don't touch this one. The 2.5 is, the model basically says that there's about a 50% chance this is going to be a clean sweep. 50% chance Miami wins a map. Other 50% chance it's a sweep. I'm probably staying away from this one. I don't think I'm touching this one. Maybe I'll watch the results of the first game, and if Miami does really well on hardpoint, then maybe you could take a crack at the 45.5 hardpoint spread. That's something possibly. FaZe looked a little soft there on hardpoint, but also FaZe lost to Vegas twice in hardpoint, and Vegas did not seem to be the greatest hardpoint team when they played against Vancouver. Yeah, I don't know exactly what I would do with that, so I think this is probably stay away. Maybe you could find a small spread here. That's what I think.
Yeah, this one is weird. I forgot to mention when we were talking Carolina, they also played FaZe last weekend. They did get a hardpoint win and then lost the next 3 maps. So somewhat expected. Whenever Ravens play an elite team, they typically lose pretty easily. But yeah, for FaZe, like, they lost both hardpoints versus Toronto and then another one versus Carolina. Now, Toronto and Carolina, in my eyes, very quality teams capable of beating FaZe. One of them did, one of them didn't. And yeah, we talked about Miami versus Vegas a little bit already. I don't know, man. Like, both of these teams looked a little shaky last weekend. I'm in agreement that, like, maybe there is a slight bit of value on Miami map 1, but again, you lost to Vegas twice in hardpoint last weekend, so maybe not. I do think our numbers are probably a little low on Heretics to win map 2. Like, anytime I see a team that's like sub 25% in Search and Destroy, it just feels a little like we're not giving them enough credit. FaZe are great in Search and Destroy, and Miami have had their struggles, but still, like, a bad team you expect to win a search every now and then. Yeah, I don't know. It feels about right. I think FaZe win this easily. Is it a 3-0? Is it a 3-1? It feels like a 50-50, and sure enough, FaZe are priced at even money. Yeah, I think this is a stay away for me. This is one we probably don't have to watch on Saturday. Like, if you're gonna be out and about and you miss this series, I'm sure you can look it up and see FaZe 3-0 or 3-1 and go on with your day. But yeah, I mean, it would be a huge pickup for Miami if they did win this, but that's a big ask for them, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Moving on, Saturday match 2, Optic versus Vegas. Optic minus 1200 on the money line, Vegas plus 600. Minus 2.5 plus 110, plus 2.5 minus 150. Optic 52.5 point favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search, 1.5 round favorites in the control. This one is actually a little interesting. I have some slight value on Vegas here. I definitely am pushing them closer to 60% to cover the plus 2.5. I have some value on them in the hard point, some value on them in the search. It's weird. I think this Vegas team is supposed to be a search team, and I think maybe that as they get more reps on search, they'll get better at it. But RCDs was doing like really well in hardpoint there. RCDs is typically not a hardpoint player, but he was doing well, and we'll have to see. This is also a Pred revenge game, so you always want to. Yeah, like this is actually no. This is also technically an RCD's revenge game too. I guess it's a bit complicated, but technically I
Sure.
guess it's an RCD's revenge game too. It's I think you don't want to like it. I'll say this. I think there's some slight value on Vegas here, and my parting words, and I'll pass it off to you, are that it'd be really funny if Vegas's first win was against Optic. I'll say that. I'll say that.
It would be hilarious. I don't think they'll win this series. It's possible, but I'm in agreement with you that I think I prefer the Vegas spread to the Optic spread. My number on Vegas hardpoint is probably going to be way short of the market for the rest of the season, just based on they were they couldn't win a hardpoint for a majority of the season. And now, right after 1 week, they look like a competitive hardpoint team, at least against the Miamis of the world. So yeah, the question you have to ask yourself is, does this look more like the Vegas-Vancouver series from last week or the Vegas-Miami series? I think Optic are somewhat on par with Surge right now. I still think I prefer Surge, but just knowing that my number is way short on Vegas Map 1 tends to make me think that they can cover this plus 2.5. And minus 150 is not great to pay, but I think their search will get better. Their search looked pretty bad last week. They had one round 11 that didn't go their way, but their search, I think, will bounce back. It might take a little time, but search is always a little fluky. And yeah, I already see some control value on Vegas, even though their control didn't win a round last weekend. They got 0-3'd twice. But again, that I expect to bounce back. If your hard point is okay, your control tends to come along with that. And yeah, Optic, again, weren't super impressive last weekend. It was a good weekend for them, no doubt. But yeah, I think I'd prefer the Vegas side of it, as crazy as that sounds. And again, you get the Pred revenge game factor for whatever that's worth. But yeah, very interested to see this match. It would be hilarious if Falcons get their first win against Optic. I don't think that'll happen, but I think they'll put up a good fight. At least keep the maps close, if not win one, maybe two. Yeah, very interested to watch this, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll see. Saturday match number 3, Boston versus LAG. Boston minus 163 on the money line, LAG plus 120. Boston minus 1.5 plus 137. LAG plus 1.5 minus 188. Boston 29.5 point favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search, 1.5 round, and then technically 1.5 round underdogs in the control, but it is shaded to minus 163, so Boston is plus 137 there in the control. Yeah, my model kind of likes LAG here a little bit. Not really likes them. It likes them closer to market value than the thing, but you like Boston here. So we're not exactly. We're both like somewhat to market of the other side. Like I'm a little closer to market on LAG. You're a bit. Your model likes Boston. Mine's a bit more ambivalent. Mine's just yeah, maybe LAG. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I agree with my model. Like, I do see a little bit of value on Boston. I don't love it, but I would prefer their side of things on the spread specifically. If LAG are going to win this series, to me, it feels like they have to have control. That's almost a non-negotiable, and then they're probably going to have to split the hard points and the searches. That or win both searches, something like that. So for Boston, like I just was really impressed with their control last weekend. After a year of looking horrible in control, like they turn around and they go 6-1 round count versus Toronto and Minnesota, who are quality control teams. So yeah, I was very impressed with that. Their hard point was not ideal, but I think they've proven over the course of the year that they're at least a league average hard point team, league average search team. So I think they have enough firepower to get this done where, yeah, I just think I prefer that side of things. I was quietly impressed with their performance. I know they lost versus Rocker, but they were round 11 away from coming out with a win there. And yeah, sweeping Toronto, I think that was a huge series for them, relatively comfortably too. That was pretty impressive in my eye. LAG, again, we just don't have the data points for them yet, but to me, they looked somewhat like their old selves. I think Boston win this. I think they do it somewhat comfortably. So I guess in disagreement with you here, but I don't love it, but I definitely do prefer the Boston side of things.
Yeah, it's funny for my model because Boston and Toronto played and Boston 3-0'd them, including the 3-0, which Toronto forfeited the control. That game doesn't exist in my model because there was no way to have a game with 0 kills in it. Yeah, fun fact. And to be fair, I think that's probably the best way to do it anyway, because that game didn't exist,
Yeah.
so it doesn't exist. Saturday match, last game on Saturday, Cloud9 versus Thieves. Cloud9 plus 500 the money line, Thieves minus 900. Cloud9 plus 2.5 minus 200, Thieves minus 2.5 plus 150. Thieves 62.5 point favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search, 1.5 round favorites in the control. Yeah, my model likes Cloud9 a little bit, but not a lot. And I can't really. After what I saw last week of Cloud9, it's really hard to justify betting this team again. So, yeah, it's like Thieves look terrifying there against Vancouver, and I'm probably gonna. I'm not touch even though my model likes a Cloud9 a little bit. I'm probably not gonna touch it. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one market feels about right, but I have the same opinion on New York. Like, I was low on New York most of the year relative to market, and it started warming up to them a little bit going into Major 2 and even last weekend. And then, yeah, you come out and get absolutely slammed by Optic. Not great. And yeah, Thieves still looked like Thieves. So I think Thieves probably win this pretty comfortably. I was interested to see that the spread in this is Thieves to sweep, not minus 1.5. Yeah, market very confident that Thieves will come out on top pretty quickly. Map to map, I don't know. My model is pretty in line with everything. So yeah, I think this is just a stay away. We expect Thieves to win. The price on them maybe isn't quite where we want it, but yeah, I don't know. Cloud9 just have to bounce back in a big way. It was one match. That's one thing I want to caveat is just it was one match. It didn't go their way. Like, better days are ahead, probably. I never want to, like, overreact to one match unless it's, like, there was a roster move or something like that. But, I don't know, man. Thieves are just, they're on another level, it seems. And this is not a time where I want to, like, step in front of them, if you catch my drift on that. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, Thieves should take care of business pretty easily here.
Sunday, match number 1, Minnesota versus Cloud9. Minnesota, basically minus 120 each way on this one. Minnesota is, however, listed at Bet365 as the favorite, minus 1.5 plus 175. Cloud9 plus 1.5 minus 250. But again, those are basically interchangeable, especially with the money line that way. However, Minnesota is the favorite in the hard point, 12.5 point favorite. Cloud9 is a 1.5 round favorite in the search, but it is shaded plus 137. And Cloud9 is a favorite in the control, minus 125 though, so basically even, but slight advantage to Cloud9 there. My model really likes Cloud9, which is weird because Minnesota looked good and Cloud9 looked not as good. I think the question is this like a bounce back week for Cloud9, or are they going to have some problems here? I think it's more. Maybe there's a bit of a bounce back. Maybe Cloud9 can have a bit of a bounce back. They didn't look good against Optic, but that was their only game. So maybe they just came out flat and they're gonna come back and look a bit better this week. I don't know, but we'll have to see that this week. We'll know in their first game. If they start looking good in their first game against, I believe it's FaZe, then just immediately turn around and bet them here. But if not, then don't touch this. That'd be my take on this. What about you? What do you think on this one?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Rocker aren't a bigger favorite in this spot. Like, these teams they have as dead even. But just based on the fact that Minnesota looked competitive versus Optic, New York did not. And Minnesota beat Boston, who we think are a solid team. They're not horrible, they're not great, but a solid team. Yeah, it just gives me more confidence in Rocker. I don't know. Like, I would be curious to see if this moves as we get closer to this match time on Sunday. Because I can definitely see, like, Minnesota jumping up to a minus 150 favorite if things shake out that way. And yeah, I don't know. I think Rocker looked pretty good. We expected Kenny to improve the team. He looks all right. I don't know. This Cloud9 team may be stuck in the mud a little bit. So if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd prefer Rocker. But at these prices, it is a coin flip. Like, I think it's pretty close to a coin flip at the end of the day, and that's where we're at. Yeah, curious to see if the prices move, but for now, it's a stay away for me. But yeah, another great game in terms of seeding leverage. These teams are both projected to be right around the 8 seed, 9 seed discussion. Yeah, huge games for Rocker this weekend. So we'll see if they can come out on top on both, or at least split them to stay in the winner's bracket picture.
Yeah. Sunday match 2, Vancouver minus 250, Carolina plus 175. Vancouver minus 1.5, minus 138. Carolina plus 1.5, plus 100. Vancouver minus 4.5 point favorite in the hard point. Technically 1.5 round underdog in the search, but it's plus 100, so it's very even there. And then 1.5 round favorites in the control that shaded plus 137, so also pretty even there as well. Yeah, my model weirdly loves Carolina here. Both of our models are in pretty much agreement that Carolina is not maybe the favorite, but should be a lot closer to even. This match should be a lot closer to even. You have them at the outright favorite. I have them a lot closer to even, just across the board. But the problem is, though, is that as we've seen with Carolina before, they're great at beating up the bottom teams, but the second they start going against the big dogs, that's when they start having problems. They've been crushed by Vancouver before, crushed by Thieves, had problems with FaZe. The question is Vancouver a big dog? Is Vancouver the third best team in the league, or are they closer to fourth, fifth, and maybe just right in that Carolina tier? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so I think my model at least is a little too high on Ravens, but I think if I had to set the line on this, like Vancouver 60-40, something like that. I think just considering how they've improved with this new lineup and how Carolina have been okay, not bad, but they've been fine over the last couple of months. But yeah, I don't know. Carolina at least they didn't get swept by FaZe. Like, they got a hard point win against a very good team. That is always something to pat yourself on the back for, but the other maps were not great. I don't know. I tend to agree with my model, though. I think these teams are closer than what the market is saying. Or maybe my model is just way too slow to react to Vancouver Surge's just improvements over the year. So for Carolina, it feels like you're going to have to bank on those search and destroys and then win one of a hard point or a control. I think control is probably the decider in this game. Like, I have control as a dead-on 50-50. So we'll see how the map set, the vetoes shake out for this one. But yeah, to me, like, you can just look at map 3 and be like, whoever wins this series, they're probably winning it through map 3. Yeah, excited to see this one shake out. See if Carolina belong in that discussion with Surge, or do Surge belong on a tier of their own? I don't know if I can ever get them into that tier with FaZe and Thieves, and I know they've been right there at the majors and the minors and all that, but I don't know. Last weekend's game, that was Surge versus Thieves, like, really locked that in, I think, for me. So even if Surge looked great in this series, like, I think it just proves that they're maybe a cut above the rest of those contenders, like Carolina. Yeah, very interested to see how this plays out. I prefer the Carolina side of things, hoping they can at least push it deep and maybe win on the back of some search and destroy success. Yeah, see how it shakes out.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Sunday, match number 3, Thieves versus Toronto, last match of the weekend. Thieves minus 334 on the money line, Ultra plus 240. Thieves minus 1.5, minus 163. Ultra plus 1.5, plus 120. Thieves 39.5 point favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search, 1.5 round favorites in the hard point, 1.5 round favorites in the search. Model likes Trin, but to be fair, Thieves also lost to Boston too. Yeah, I don't know. My model really likes Thieves in the search against Toronto, but a little ambivalent in the hard point and definitely ambivalent in the search. But then again, that combined total of that has the money line right where the book has it, and a little less value than minus 1.5, but still some value there. What do you think on this one? Are you with the book here? Do you see any value on Toronto? What do you think?
Yeah, but I don't know. With the way Thieves look right now, I don't want to step in front of them. But yeah, Toronto are a quality team. My model sees maybe a little bit of value, mostly coming through that map 2, but it's not much. I think Toronto are a little better than a 50-50 favorite in Search and Destroy, but to me that just means, like, these teams very likely to split 2 Search and Destroys if we get 2 of them. LA Thieves a justifiable huge favorite in map 3. Yeah, and I think you have to have a lot more faith in Thieves in map 1 as well. So Toronto are definitely good enough to get it done. My model's trying to point me in that direction, and I'm just too scared. I just think Thieves are rocking and rolling right now. And Toronto have been solid as well. They are definitely capable of pushing this deep, maybe winning it. But yeah, I think this is just like a kick back, relax, and enjoy the show sort of a game where hopefully we get a good series, but I would not be shocked if Thieves just come out and steamroll them, because sometimes like Thieves just look unbeatable, and yeah, wouldn't be shocked at all if that's this sort of result. But yeah, we'll have to enjoy this one. This is the last game of the weekend, or is there one more? Yeah, that is it. So good one to end on for sure.
Models versus markets. Here are our picks for the week. I'll go through my picks and I'll let you go through yours. I've got Carolina money line versus Minnesota. I don't love the -1.5, but it is playable, but I'll stick with that. I will go with Thieves -163 versus Toronto. I think they do get the job done there. And then I also do Vegas +2.5 -150 versus Texas. Optic. I think it'd be. I think a Pred revenge game in one of the modes should get them a win. And then at that point, then it's like, okay, just get to a game 5, and I think that's where this could get interesting. So, yeah, give me Vegas to keep it competitive. What plays do you have for this week?
Yeah, so first match of the weekend, Miami and Optic. This one is a little scary, but again, it's just more of a I'm not quite there yet with Optic's pricing. I think they are a good team. I think they're better than Miami, but I think Miami are good enough to at least compete. And yeah, I can't shake that winners round 1 game from Major 1 out of my head. Like Miami outright beat Optic, and that was a lineup where that included Hook. It didn't have Skies necessarily, and it was also in Spain where all of the Miami guys are from, but still, I think Miami might have another little something in them to at least make that interesting. Carolina I have in their other series versus Vancouver. Again, I just think they're closer than the market is saying they are. I think Surge are probably going to win that, but again, I'd rather take the team that I think can push it to a game 5, and I think Carolina are good enough to at least do that. And then I'm going with a favorite with my last pick, Boston. I just was impressed with their control last weekend, specifically against Minnesota. But yeah, I don't know. This LAG team is just, I'm not there yet with them. I don't know how you can have any faith picking them really in any sort of map spread or whatever. And if Boston just do what they do in Hardpoint and in Search, I think they can win this probably in a 3-1 fashion. So I like the +137 price on that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's good. Combined model plays. So on Friday, yeah, we're full sending Miami here. Miami money line +1.5, map 1, map 2, and map 3. Just across the board, just apparently bet Miami. We'll see how it goes. Carolina map 2, FaZe map 2, Miami map 1 on Saturday, then Vegas map 2, and Cloud9 map 3. And then on Sunday, New York Cloud9 map 2, and then full sending Carolina again, money line +1.5, map 1, map 2 against Vegas. And then Toronto +1.5 there against these. A little bit of value, but I'm going against it in my pick. We will be back next week with Major 3 Week 3 preview. I'm not sure when we're going to record that, because that is okay. We might have to record that one early in the week, but there will be a podcast next week. Don't worry about that, because the Easter and all kinds of other stuff. There will be a podcast next week, so don't worry about that. But other than that, have a good week, everybody. There's some good COD this weekend, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week for Major 3